information and you want to turn the tide, you got Four Seasons Pest Solutions on your side.
My name's Nick Iverson. I'm the field sales representative for BASF. Hopefully most of y'all are familiar with the BASF. Some of our flagship products like Termidor, the Alpine line, make that Trilona termite bait, a lot of aerosols, the PT line. But anyways, that's who we are. I've been with BASF a little over 20 years. It's been a fun ride. It's a great company to work for, a lot of good products, but most importantly, get to be with people like you all, you know, every day for the most part. Besides in front of the computer, really enjoy what I do. There's my contact information, cell phone, email. You get questions anytime on any of our products, give us a holler. See if we might can provide assistance. I'm gonna go with the saying I heard a long time ago: a good speaker finishes on time, a great speaker finishes early. So, hey, with the ants, I think probably all agree that ants are good for business. Probably make the phone ring more than any other insect. Between that and spiders maybe, but downside of it is it's probably one of the top insects that you're dealing with for resurfaces. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We're going to cover some of them, and I got a lot of videos in here. This is, I don't want this to be, because I can't stand sitting where you are and watching death by PowerPoint with just biology, and blah, blah, blah. So we're going to show you how we use their biology in control with some of the products we're using today, and kind of go from there. And hey, if you can remember anything from today's talk, remember this, that the killing the workers doesn't always kill a colony. What do I mean about that? Well, hey, if you go up to a customer's house and hey, they show you where the ants are, you see them, there's 500 ants crawling on there. If that's the only ones you're killing, have an impact on, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it, you know, because there's, I don't know how many fold times more ants back at the colony where they're coming from that they easily be replaced. And you got products today that can, you know, do this. I mean, you got a lot of, let me say too, I think it's a great time. Like I said, I've myself been in it, and I know Scott from Oldham has too, longer than I have, over 20 years in the pest control industry. You know, Glenn's been in a long time. I know some of y'all have too, but man, it's a good time to be in the pest control industry with the products we have today to use are superior to what you had, 20, 25 years ago. So it's nice. But ants, they are, just here's some of the boring biology stuff, but they are social insects. We know that they contact each other during grooming, feeding, communication. This is where we're going to try and take advantage of some of that biology and use with in their control. Hey, we know when ants are carrying food, particularly food that's solid food, whether it's baits or other dead insects, those ants carrying that food aren't the ones eating it. And we'll get through. We'll show you what happens back at the colony, how that solid food is liquefied and shared within the colony. But hey, really, everybody's objective should be, again, not just killing the ants on the structure, but having an effect back at the nest. Where you're killing the reproductives, the larvae, and all the other workers. And with ants are social insects. It's like termites. And hey, just know this: with social insects, there's nothing documented where any social insect has a resistance to any chemistry. It doesn't happen with social insects, but it does happen with non-social insects, bed bugs, flies, etc. But ants, their colonies consist of reproductive females, males, and workers, and all those workers out there, they're sterile females. And depending on your ant species you're dealing with, it could be different worker sizes. From one same size ant, that's called monomorphic. Mono means one, di means two. You're gonna have two different type of worker sizes. Polymorphic means more than one worker size. And usually one of these things can help maybe field ID ants that maybe a clue to kind of what ant species you're dealing with. For example, you see the biggest ant on that wheel? He's next to the smallest ant. Those are both mature fire ants. one's not immature and one's not an adult. They're both mature fire ants. And again, all those are mature fire ants, but fire ants are polymorphic. They have many worker sizes. And hey, depending on the ant species you're dealing with, they can have different number of queens, from single queens you'll see over on the left to multiple queens over on the right. Kind of notice that ants that give us the biggest headache have multiple queens. From the odorous house ant. Probably not any Argentine ants up here yet, but be on the lookout for them. We'll talk more about that later. Pharaoh ant, you may see him some, etc. But the main point is multiple queens usually mean multiple headaches with ants. Ants, as far as feeding, they're omnivorous, which means they eat different things. Really depending on the time of year is what they're going after. They like carbohydrates in late summer and fall. Proteins more in the spring and summer. So, hey, know that for the ant bait that you're using. Whatever ant bait you're using might be, if it's a newer bait, you may think it's the best thing since sliced bread. All of a sudden they quit eating it. Well, look kind of what time of year it is versus is it a protein or a sugar-based bait, and that may be why. We talked about a little bit earlier how the ants, that solid food you're carrying around, bringing back to the nest. Well, that ant, remember, is not the one. Those worker ants aren't the one that actually eat it. They bring it back to the nest. This fourth instar larvae, which kind of looks like a grub worm over here, that picture. They actually regurgitate digestive enzymes on them things and liquefy what can be liquefied, and up the juice and spread it out to the rest of the colony. What nutrition there is. Here's a blown up picture of that 4-star larvae. Kind of looks like Jabba the Hutt blown up, doesn't it? Here's a little solid piece of granule right there that it's chawing on. But once it's come on, get going here. All right. Here's a kind of visual example of the way it's food shared in the colony. See, these workers if they bring back liquid food, or you'd spread liquid food right away to the first 3 larva stages, instars, whatever you want to call them. Solid food's got to go straight to that 4th instar larvae. Again, it liquefies what can be fed to the queen, the younger immatures back to the queen, etc. So if you're using ant bait, you see how this is spread, or products that transfer via trophallaxis, how it can be spread within the colony. And it's pretty dynamic, really, the way it has. But ant behavior does come from biology. And hey, let's look at how we can take advantage of this biology, particularly with products we can be using today. From trophallaxis, which is the sharing of food, even ants eating dead ants that may have been exposed to something. Just antennination, or ants touching each other. They're always touching each other. I got a video here to show you, but there's a passive transfer and an active transfer. I'm going to skip over that, but whether it's ant to ant or picking it up on a surface, different ways of transfer. But we talk about trophallaxis, the sharing of food, and ants are doing this 100,000 times a day in the colony. But here's a picture. Watch this little movie clip. It's a fire ant here. But look at those ants that are kissing. They're actually sharing the food right there. But look at all these other ants that come up, touching them and everything else. If they got, say, a product that can transfer, like Termidor, and every other ant's touching him, he's getting exposed to it and moving off on him and kind of transferring down the line too. But pretty neat. Or if you got an ant bait, things that eating a bait, hey, that's how it can be moved and transferred around. And also too, hey, ants, if they pick up if the residual doesn't kill them right away, again has the ability to transfer. Not only can it kill them on their being exposed to an exoskeleton, but also orally. To how they get that in their mouth. Well, ants have on that front leg, they have what they call an antenna comb. And that thing, it cleans off as best it could the antenna. You think the antenna on an ant, it's a big sensory organ, if you will. Just like any radar or whatever else, satellite, it's got to be, clean to work at its best. Where do you think they clean this antenna comb off? In the mouth. Watch this picture here. Watch these ants walking just on this paper towel, I think it is. See that antenna just constantly touching the ground. Watch, he's going to, here he cleans it off. And can't see it, but right in the mouth too. So pretty neat stuff. And we look at ants. Hey, how we're treating them, what we're treating. We need to know what kind of ant we're dealing with. And there's some clues you could use out in the field to be able to identify, hey, that's blank ant. And a lot of these, just with some experience, you should be able to pick up on pretty quick. I mean, you got good resource, great resource here, University of Kentucky. You know, in the entomology department can always assist. But you can't call them every time you're out in the field. Maybe every now and then look up, or there's books you can online, etc. But hey, if you become experienced, you kind of know, just like a hunter knows his game. Say like a dove hunter, you first go little kid dove hunting. Those doves, blackbirds, robins flying way away kind of all look like, same. But as they get closer, you'll be able to identify what dove is by his characteristics, him flying, body size, etc. Color. Kind of same way, you narrow down, hey, well, that's ant. There's a lot more things you probably could pick up on here. I just wrote typed out a few things here. But, hey, first, be able to distinguish, is that, and particularly in the springtime, is that an ant or a termite? You go to swarm, because, hey, if you're treating for ants and those are termite swarmers, or vice versa, that treatment's not going to do any good. But there's out in the field, you should be able to, well, I probably can't see it with my 50-some-year-old eyes now, but if I get a hand lens, I can. Just the antenna. The ants are more elbowed antenna, kind of like a football field goal, where termites are kind of straighter. That's one way. The abdomen is more constricted on an ant versus the termites, kind of just a straighter abdomen. The wings, same size on a termite, different size on an ant. Probably need a good hand lens to see that, but hey, we definitely want to know that, because a lot of times I don't have to tell y'all, but people think they have termites swarming. It's really ants. And upon further investigation, hey, could be two things going on at the same time too. So don't just take one or two things and make sure you do your due diligence and get enough data to make the call. Just a few things on ants here, and some just general tips and tricks to be able to identify them. A couple facts too. I think it's fair to say odors, house ants, what we're dealing with most of the time here, as far as calls, probably resurfaces too. But they are the same. They're monomorphic. All those ants you see are going to be the same size. Multiple queens. This part of the country, you crush them, they give off a certain odor, hence the name odorous house ant. To me, it smells more like kind of a citronella smell than rotten coconut, but most entomology books refer to it as that. But their population can be huge, tens to hundreds of thousands. And their colonies get along. They'll share multiple queens. They'll share broods and whatnot. They love They love honeydew. You know what honeydew is? It's the excrement off a scale insect, or say an aphid, that say maybe on a crepe myrtle tree or rose bushes or different kind of ornamentals that may attract those insects. A lot of times if you have trouble finding a source, go look, particularly around crepe myrtle trees. You may see a nest close to them, because they love. You ever see a crepe myrtle tree in, say, mid to late summer, it looks black, the leaves? That's kind of rotten honeydew on there. That's what that is. Pavement ant, we'll get some of him. To me, one of the best ways I ID these is, you got to see it up close, but see those kind of veiny lines in the head? It's more distinguishable on the pavement ant than they are other ants. And out in the field too, that his abdomen is going to be a lot more shiny and glossy than other ants. So just got another way to a way to distinguish them, because they're roughly about the same, close to the same size as the Argentine ant, but the key's there. Argentine ant, I'll put this up here. I don't think y'all aren't encountering him in South Central Kentucky yet. They're in Chattanooga. I know they're in Georgia and all your Gulf Coast states. But kind of similar to the odorous house ant, but even more pervasive as far as numbers. Where odorous house ants, you know, trails are pretty thin. Their trails of these ants can be, you know, a couple inches wide, just with the sheer numbers. This little movie, here's a movie clip taken down in Florida. But if you're at the beach or somewhere around the beach, you see a lot of times you see these numbers. A lot of times they're going to be fair to bet, probably Argentine ant. Like I said, pretty common down there. But one worker size too. They're fast moving. Like I said, inches wide. Carpenter ant, spread across the country. Different species, different sections of the country. But hey, this part, for the most part, it's, to me, the best way to identify it is that's that large ant you see out there. That, you know, he's about 2, maybe 3 times the size of an odorous house ant. It's that large ant. Glenn showed earlier some of the, you know, the frass kick out. That one way you see that it's some of the damage that it's done. Hey, do you know how to distinguish the damage between a carpenter ant and a termite damage? Carpenter ant's going to be clean damage, like kind of looks like almost like sea coral, I say. You're not going to see any mud or any debris or dirt in there. It's going to be clean and damaged. See, like this. If it's termites, it'd potentially be packed in some portions with some kind of soil or whatever kind of debris they can use termites to get in there. Carpenter ants love to forage at night. So if you're kind of seeing some evidence of carpenter ant damage but don't see any, and you're out there in the summer at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 90 degrees. I mean, you don't like being out there at 90 degrees in the heat, and neither do the biggest time they forage in the summer is between like midnight and 2 in the morning. So and they love to use guidelines like coming in on telephone lines or electric lines, etc. And whereas odorous house ant, you know, mentioned earlier, their colonies will intermingle, get along. Not so with carpenter ants. If you have multiple colonies around a structure, one time, or take one from another house and bring it to a house where you have, you know, it's a foreign colony, and drop 1 or 2 off and watch them get destroyed by the other colony. They're brutal on each other. I think you got a little, the movie here. I should have kept it playing while it was going. They just come up here and keep chawing on him. Pharaoh ant, you're not going to see these in this part of the country. You do in Florida on the outside some, but here somehow they were brought in, kind of like a bed bug. Or a German cockroach, say, because they're not going to live outside. They can't live year-round this part of the country. But you may see these in some commercial setting, like malls, etc. But they're very slow-moving trails is a good way to identify these. Almost look like they're on drugs. Just nothing. I mean, just nothing's going to really disturb them. Just kind of keep going, but very slow and lethargic. Trail, and the trail's going to be kind of single file too. But it's a pretty small ant. Hey, if you do run across these, do not spray them with any pyrethroids or any repellents. Potentially causing splitter buds, pretty common with pharaoh ants. If you do use that, use baits and any non-repellent that's labeled for pharaoh ants. Y'all starting to see any fire ants up here yet? Some. Show of hands, just somebody raise their hand if you're seeing any fire ants yet around here, Somerset. Okay, we are. Okay.
This is over in the Corbin area, right?
Okay. Hey, that's what, 30 miles from here? 15 years ago in Knoxville, Tennessee, that's where I live. We never had fire. They're around now. Not like they are in, say, Texas, Louisiana, but they're around. And once they're around, they're here. They're not going away. And the best way, well, if you've ever been stung by a fire ant, you become an expert pretty quick how to identify fire ants, particularly by their mounds. I mean, you see a fire ant mound, you know it. particularly if you've been stung by one before. Because usually they don't sting you about, one of them doesn't sting you, it's multiple ants. They get on you, and you hardly even notice. You make all of a sudden look, and you got about 50 of them on you, and they'll send a pheromone signal out to sting, and all at once. And some people are very allergic to them too. But I mean, you can get, multiple stings at one time, and just one of them things itch like crazy on me. And that make that pimple-like thing stay like a day or two on you. But they particularly talk about, remember I mentioned about don't kill any ants, don't just kill the workers, use something that has effect back at the nest. It's a fire ant nest taken around College Station, Texas. But that yardstick with that mound up top to the right picture there is about 13 inches tall. This is like 28. This is a mold of that fire ant mound underground. This goes like, what's that, 25 inches under. And again, multiple queens in there. There's a lot of biological activity going on. If you're just killing a few hundred ants up top, they'll be back in a few days up top. So, hey, fire ant baits work. Some of the newer baits, I know Syngenta Avion makes a good fire ant, pretty fast acting, about 3 to 5 days. We have a newer one too called Siesta. It's a different active ingredient, but it works with about 3 to 5 days too. Baits are probably for long term, baits on fire ants are probably your best solution for killing them. This is an invasive species ant. He's in the Gulf Coast now too. Started around Houston, Texas. They now call it the tawny crazy ant. They thought they had a different species in Florida, but they found out they're the same or very closely related in Florida. But they started out in Houston, Texas. Now this 10, 15 years ago. Now they're in the southern parishes of Louisiana, southern counties of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. I think they're in Georgia now too, but wherever these guys get established, they wipe out it. They outcompete every other ant, including the fire ant, Argentine ant, odorous house ant. Is the only ant in that particular spot where they are, and they trail about their trail size about as wide as this room. Watch this. I'm gonna show this video, but where pest control guys are killing these, they literally sweeping them up by the dustpan fulls. That's how many there, and they're massive in numbers. It literally looks like the ground's moving if you kind of stare at them. There's so many. But again, if you're at the beach and around the Gulf Coast, you may see these. Don't bring them back though. They don't sting though. And they're moving too. Anyway, just a little FYI there. But hey, I picked this up. I was at a talk in Tennessee a couple years. Dr. Karen Vale from UT. She was doing an ant talk, and she put this up. Ant ID key that you can use in the field. It's actually from NC State, but it's called discoverants.com. And if you'll click on Ant ID keys, you can maybe help you field ID some ants if you ever have questions. But just gonna throw that up there. But hey, outside of pharaoh ants, all our ants are coming from the outside. I would argue most of our pests outside of bed bugs, ants, bed bugs, pharaoh ants, German cockroaches, about everything we're dealing with is coming from the outside. So most of our treatments, if you think about it, are perimeter based, and even more so after COVID. I think people that always went in at least inside or thought they had to go inside. I'm seeing, hey, don't necessarily have to go inside. So more and more, I think we're going to see. I know it's been going that way, but I think it's headed that way even further. But one of the watch-outs, though, speaking of regulatory, is the surface groundwater protection issues. Hey, we all want to drink clean water. We're in some of the prettiest parts of the country right around here, East Tennessee too, beautiful creeks, etc. We all want to keep them that way. And just to do that, just make sure where we are applying stuff, it's going to a labeled site and staying there and not running off into the ditch, and then the ditch into the creek and creek into the river and et cetera, et cetera. It's never good to get a call on first thing Monday morning. Man, there's a couple thousand fish floating out here in my pond or wherever, and somebody's guy just sprayed out there Friday. So there's a lot of expense and a lot of bad publicity. Make sure you're paying attention to where your products are going. And there's stuff we can do particularly for ants on the non-chemical side. And it goes really for all pests. On the outside, the freer we could stay clear of houses, clear of clutter, debris, leaf matter, etc. Up next to the foundation, less likely. A lot of times they're going to try and make or build a nest or come through. But particularly trimming bushes, limbs touching the house, it's just a overpass for ants to potentially bridge over your treatment into a house. How much more time? What are we doing on time? What time is it? Huh? Oh, perfect. I'm gonna take 3. But hey, as far as like I said, it's a good time to be in the pest control industry with the products you have. BASF, I'll highlight some here real quick, but you got a lot of options, tools you can use. But if you look at recommendations from BASF, break that house down and on the structure, away from the structure, and if you have to go inside. But no doubt about it, Termidor SC for ants. If you just use it once a year, when the ants first start coming out in the spring, may vary a little, year to year, on what kind of time it is. But when the ants start coming out, that's an ideal time to nail the ants before they get a chance to establish their population. And why? Because it's that transfer effect with it's like with termites with ants too. You get control way beyond most of the ants that it kill, and it's killing back at the nest, and they never even came in contact with the original treatment. And I've heard over these, it's too expensive to use. Too expensive particularly on headache houses. Yeah, take it to your worst. If you still never use Termidor in an ant house, take it to your worst ant house and see how well it works. Still same label. Another product we have, I'm going to show you a newer one, is have y'all any of y'all tried Alpine WSG on a house, inside or outside for ants? This is one of our top selling pest control products now too. Unlike Termidor you can't bring inside, Alpine you can bring inside. If you've never used this, it looks like water when you mix it up. It smells like water, and it kills like Termidor, I'll say. But if you've never tried it before, go try it. Get your worst German cockroach infestation and go try it on that. It slays German roaches. But you could take it, but it's spot, crack, crevice treatment on the inside for ants. Won't contaminate your baits, but I'm telling you too, it nails German roaches. It's got a very friendly label on the outside. It's not a pyrethroid. And unlike Termidor, you got to put 1 foot up out. It's pretty limited, and you can spray this pretty much wherever you want on the outside. It's very friendly where the label is. But man, I'm telling you, ants and German roaches, it nails.
What's the cost of that compared to the Termidor?
Yeah, depending on even on the low rate, it's probably about $3.50 a gallon. What? $3.50 a gallon or so? Yeah, it's expensive, but it works. And if you got a bad German cockroach, somebody charge for it. Ant granule, your baits, you got a lot of choices of baits. I'm going to wrap. If you have to go inside, I'd, again, stay with that non-repellent. Lots of options, tools today. And hey, there's a lot of things we can't control, but control what we can control. And hey, with that being said, well, thank you for your time. Appreciate the invitation to be here.
Any pest, any season, we're the solution. At our family-owned and operated local institution. If you're dealing with an infestation and you want to turn the tide, you got 4 your side.